Hey fellow Vault Dwellers, it's Angry Turtle, and Bethesda just dropped the initial notes and plans for the next update, which we already take a quick look on. And this is the most crazy rebalance for the game that we received yet. That's an early look of the patch that is coming first to public test server and then with next season to the live game. Hopefully some adjustments still will be made. I have a lot to say about it. The patch notes are very long. If you don't want to listen to me, I will drop a comment for you, the pinned comment with the link to those patch notes. If you prefer to just go there and skip the video, that's fine. I mean, I prefer if you stay, but if you don't want to, I'm not blaming you. It's a long one. Let's start. In the Gold Vision patch notes earlier this month, we provided an update on how we felt the combat rebalancing project we started last year has gone so far. We also mentioned in that article that we had a few more substantial updates to solidify the new foundation of combat for the future content we have planned. Today, we wanted to give you an early look at the combat rebalancing work that will arrive in our next public test server. We will have more information for you about when this public test server will begin at a later date. This round of combat balancing adjustment has a strong focus on improving the experience of using weapons both in and out of Vats, as well as providing a significant boost to underperforming weapons. Some changes to highlight include significant increases to melee weapon damage, boost to damage over time effects, and bashing with weapons now scaling with the player's level, changes to the Vats formula, and improved manual aiming feel. Adjustments have also been made across the board to make it easier for you to select weapons and mods that fit your desired playstyle, giving you more confidence that the weapons you want to play with will work across the wasteland. Due to these changes, we'll also be making some targeted health and resistance adjustments to some of Appalachia's more prolific enemies, including, but not limited to, super mutants, enemies in power armor, and Scourge Beast. These creatures will now also have additional contrast in their resistances to better highlight their strengths and weaknesses versus each damage type. Since this is one of the largest numeric shifts that Fallout 76 combat has gone through, we'll be on the lookout for potential follow-up adjustments, both within this public test server and in future patch notes. The adjustments here are huge. Combat balance notes. Manual aim improvements. We've made changes to all ranged weapons to improve players' ability to hit targets outside of Vats. These changes vary per weapon and include smaller cone of fire, reduced recoil, additional shots can be fired before reaching peak recoil, cone of fire now increases less as a result of moving, reduced cone of fire while crouching sneaking, reduced cone of fire while aiming down sights. Spin-up weapons such as the minigun and Gatling laser now have reduced recoil after firing for a short period of time. Reduce camera movement for many weapons. Actions in first-person view. This includes firing, reloading, and post-fire actions such as bolt action animations. Medium and long scopes have additional zoom levels. Press the Vats button to toggle between 2 or 3 zoom levels depending on the scope. When first aiming down a scope, you will begin at the lowest zoom level. We've listed some general expectations for how weapons will behave below. Please note that mods can have a significant impact on weapon behavior, so these descriptions refer to the unmodded version of each weapon type. Pistol. Reasonable accuracy in all situations. Retains accuracy pretty well while moving. Minimal recoil. Revolver. Somewhat of a bridge between regular pistols and single-shot rifles. Accurate at long ranges but need to remain still and aim down sights for best accuracy. Recoil is higher than many other weapons. Shotgun. Spread improves while crouching or aiming down sights, not especially accurate and has higher recoil than most other weapons. Submachine gun. Doesn't have the same peak accuracy in various situations as pistol or rifles, but easier to use while moving. Semi-auto rifle, solid accuracy at long range, strong benefits from crouching and aiming down sights, not especially accurate relative to some other weapons while moving. Single-shot rifle, highest overall accuracy at long ranges, fare best while crouching and aiming down sights, not very accurate while moving, and cone of fire takes longer to recover than other weapons. Ballistic heavy weapon. Reasonable overall accuracy and controllable recoil during sustained fire, but not as precise as other weapons. Spin-up weapons fare better here. Good recoil and cone of fire benefit from crouching and aiming down sights. 50 cal machine gun maintains more accuracy when moving than other heavy autos. Light machine gun can act somewhat as a bridge between a heavy weapon and an automatic rifle. It can be more precise at longer ranges than a heavy weapon, but it isn't as accurate while moving. Laser and plasma. Weapons with laser projectiles typically are more accurate and have less recoil than ballistic weapons. Plasma projectiles are usually somewhere in between. Same for Alien Blaster Disintegrator. Explosive launcher. High recoil but doesn't have a strong impact on accuracy due to the low rate of fire. Not very accurate relative to other weapons, low accuracy while moving. Vats. The formula for calculating hit chances in Vats has been rewritten to be more consistent and intuitive, which means nerf. Overall hit chances with most weapons will be higher. Distant, smaller and more difficult enemies will sometimes be harder to hit. Here's a basic overview of how it works. The formula begins with an assumption of max hit chance being 95%, which is the same now. Various factors reduce your hit chance, such as distance to the target, visibility of the target, difficulty of hitting each of the target's body parts, your weapon's range, cone of fire, recoil, fire rate, etc. So they adding more, as normally cone of fire, recoil, fire rate was not affecting Vats accuracy, so that's new. Perks, weapon, mods, etc. can improve each of these factors or directly increase your hit chance. Perception reduces some of the penalties of a large cone of fire and long distance to the target relative to your weapon's maximum range. Beyond about half of weapon's range, hit chance steadily decreases to 0%. Below about half of a weapon's range, penalties to hit chance are reduced. As you close in on point blank range, hit chance will increase until you have a very high chance of hitting the target. Additional VAT changes. Players can no longer target body parts on the opposite side of enemies, such as the Ultra Genetic Shield Generator through the front of the Guardian EN06. Solo farming will be a little bit more difficult, not much. Bullet deflection exists, hopefully they don't know, don't tell them. The distance to target calculation for large enemies now begins on the outer bounds of the creature rather than the center of the creature. This improves hit chances for many large creatures such as the Scotchbeast Queen. Explosion changes. Adjusted many player weapon explosions so they lose less damage towards the outer edge of the explosion. So that's opposite adjustment to what was done about 3 patches ago. Made adjustments to the Fatman experimental MIRV and frag grenade MIRV explosions to have a wider spread for the MIRV projectiles. The fire arrows no longer have an explosion that causes nearby targets to catch fire. Increase the damage dealt by explosive arrows. Explosion force reductions. We've reduced the impact force of many explosions so they no longer push corpses and objects as far. We've also made adjustments so the impact force of certain explosions was more appropriate to the size and scale of each explosion. Note, this change does not affect the damage dealt by these explosions, only how far they toss away stuff. And that's a list. So basically everything that explodes. Explosion size adjustments for multiple grenades, usually positive, with exception of Nuka Quantum Gun on first Zappa. So this one is negative for some reason. That's got nerfed, in other words. Other stuff improved. Additional explosion adjustment. Explosion VFX from the explosive legendary mod and ultrasight laser weapons and the V63 laser carbine now match the weapon's projectile color. Reduce the frequency of grenades, mines, and explosive weapon ammo in containers and enemy loot. Increase the crafting cost of Nuka and Nuka Quantum grenades. They really don't like us with those grenades. Weapon-based damage. There is a lot. And someone said in the chat when we were discussing it on the Turtlecast that they probably just roll dice like D6 or whatever Dungeons and Dragons dice they had available to figure out those numbers, as there are such gems as my favorite gun being nerfed by 1 damage from 43 down to 42. There is lots of changes, a lot of them not very impactful, but there are some huge. Significant like 10mm buff, that's a lot. Alien Disintegrator. Assault Rifle for some reason doubling up almost in damage now out of the sudden. Melee weapons have significant increases. Auto Axe is getting that, don't be excited, Auto Axe is getting a nerf, but it will be doing more damage per hit. So just to don't keep your excitement low, it is getting a nerf. Auto Grenade Launcher, free impact. 117 explosion going to free impact, 244 explosion. Yes, those grenades have impact damage that is almost non-existent, that remains. Explosion is what counts. So Grenade Launcher is getting huge buff to its damage, and most of the regular melee like baseball bat more than doubling in damage. Regular grenades more than doubling in damage. There is a lot. There is a lot of changes, like something like Bear Arm almost tripling the damage done. Whoever was using Black Powder Blunderbuss, you upset one of the developers, they taking away 1 damage from your weapon. In the same time, buffing Black Powder Pistol by more than double. Black Powder Rifle, but doubling up. Most of the stuff. They just don't like the Blunderbuss. A lot, like I will not be able to read every single weapon and changes. I will scroll over so you can pause when you see on the screen something you want to take a closer look on. If any of this stuff is of your interest, if your favorite weapon is there, then just pause and take a look. Light machine gun is being slightly nerfed for whatever reason. I don't know really why. So as you can see, some random nerfs, some huge buffs, and some small adjustments that do not sometimes make a chance, but that's what happens when you roll the dice. For every weapon, new values for the damage. So the dice will tell you the truth, and those are the new damage. I like about Tesla Cannon being really improved. That's the one I am happy about. Additional weapon damage changes. Thrown weapons such as throwing knives, fragmentation grenades, ship squash quills, and mines now scale with player level up to level 50. Weapons which have a hold to charge, like Gauss weapons, or wait to charge, sniper lasers, now display their uncharged damage in the Pip-Boy and inspect menus rather than their fully charged damage. Weapons which can be fired in partially charged state and have an explosive projectile, primary Gauss weapons, will now have their explosion damage scaled to the amount of charge, which in other words, it's a direct nerf, as those weapons at this moment of the live game version always do the full explosive damage regardless of the charge. The Gauss minigun now gains increased damage when being fired for prolonged periods of time, peaking at 60% bonus damage. So similar mechanic to the Volt 63 carbine, charge up mechanic that you fire and it hits up and do more damage. The Gauss minigun will do that too now. Bladed weapons now include a bleed, physical damage over time effect. They still say bleed and physical, conflicting those two. I think they're trying to nerf or the bleed. In the live game version, the bleed effect, the true bleed effect, do direct damage to the enemy health, ignoring armor. The physical dot is being greatly reduced by enemy armor. So which one is it? Time will tell when public test server will be launched. Thrown item weight adjustments, basically making stuff randomly heavier or lighter for I don't know what reason, probably rolling a dice on that. That would be my best bet. Weapon bash damage. Bash damage has been increased for the following weapons, making weapon bashing much more practical. This synergizes with the changes to stock and bayonet mods listed below. Note, bash damage now scales with weapon level, so the values below are for the weapon's maximum level. Lower levels are scaled proportionally. Now, I don't think still anyone gonna be bashing enemies to kill them, but do you think what I think? I know you do think that. We'll need to test it, but I know you do think that. Minigun, bash damage from 15 to 104. For those of you unfamiliar, you can watch my latest video about bash shredder minigun, the shredder. So that's the bashing, automatic bash minigun, in other words. I cannot wait for test server to launch to see if that's true, but that would be insane. I already put insane on the thumbnail on that video, so I would need to put something else. Triple insane, 16 times the insanity, oh, that would be good. If that's true, like, imagine what would happen if what you see in that video, damage would be multiplied by 8. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but that's what's in the patch notes. Weapon ranges. We've adjusted the range for most player weapons to shore up some of the shortest range weapon types, such as shotgun, and to help differentiate many weapon classes that previously coalesced into about 204 to 88 feet of range when modded. Note, explosive launchers' range is primarily derived from their projectile, so these numbers serve as a rough guide for their effective range. Note, mods can have a strong impact on weapon ranges, so the numbers listed here are for this base weapon short barrel. Those numbers will not tell you too much, but it looks like shotguns are getting a little bit of love, and generally readjustment cannot really tell what's gonna happen unless we test it in-game to see the implication, as they are messing up a little bit more with weapon ranges than just the values. So here it is, additional range changes. Weapons now have reduced damage when exceeding their maximum range, down to 10% at double their maximum range. In just last patch, they changed that. Keep in mind, this note in here, I will read it, but then I will tell you that it doesn't make sense. Previously, we had modified most weapons to scale to 50% damage at their maximum range. This is unchanged, which is not true. The change mentioned above only applies as weapons exceed their maximum range. So how it is on live game version, the weapons do 100% damage at their listed range, which is their maximum length, and then start scaling down to 50% damage when you exceed it. After you exceed it even further, the projectile disappears, so they do 0 damage as the projectile do not exist anymore. Therefore, what they said in here doesn't make any sense. Does not reflect actual game. I don't know who wrote it down. Someone who probably doesn't play it, and they told the intern to type it down. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's a direct nerf to out of range weapon damage. So it's going down from 50% when you exceed the range to 10%, which is huge difference. You will really need to stay in range of the weapon, which penalizes all weapons with short range. This doesn't matter. This doesn't affect explosions. But all other weapons, like the regular plasma gun, if you don't put a long barrel, they even included paddle ball. But yeah, the short, so shotguns mostly, will be negatively affected again. Poor shotguns. They're increasing their base range a little bit, but then penalizing them again. Poor shotguns. Weapon AP cost, a lot of adjustment, and again, no impact on the game really, as you take a look on those values. Just someone just rolling more dice. They have those dice there. I feel that. They have those Dungeon Dragon dice. Someone is having fun. A lot of random changes to weapon AP costs, mainly melee. Weapon sneak attack multipliers, and those are extremely important now. They will explain in a moment, so we'll read that, but those values are way more important than before. Therefore, baton and bear arm with value of 4, those will be a beast when attacking from sneak. Huge difference to all sneak attacks. Like sneak attacks, that's one thing that is receiving a huge buff, not the values. The values not as important without the second part that we hopefully soon get there. Weapon critical attack multipliers, those are not very important, but they're being updated, mostly buffed a little bit for multiple weapons. Mainly melee. The melee is receiving some love, the classic melee. Not the auto axe, not the auto axe. Weapon mods. The vast majority of melee and range weapons, weapon mods, have been updated to have more consistent and intuitive effects and to offer additional choices for a variety of playstyles. There are far too many changes to list, well over 1000 mods updated. So instead, here's some highlight for common mods. Note, the effects listed per mod are relative to the base version of the weapon and not relative to the pure version of the mod. So the listing stuff here doesn't tell you too much. It's based on the comparing to the base weapon. So it's doing mostly what it already does. Like those effects are already present on those mods. So how much it's doing, that will be important. How much? And values we don't know, therefore I will not read it all, as without values that is not really impactful at all. Descriptions only tell us absolutely nothing. If you insist on reading that, pause and read. Bleed fire and poison mods. Changes have been made to fire and poison mods to offer better damage over time. We've also made changes to some of these mods to convert more of their original damage to fire or poison. Mods that add blades to weapons now more consistently have a bleed physical damage over time effect. The damage from this effect has been greatly increased. Receiver mods. Mods which change the ammo type of a weapon have been modified to better reflect the increase or decrease in ammo strength. Stronger ammo will typically have higher AP cost, lower durability, and be harder to control in manual aim. Weaker ammo will typically have lower AP costs and be easier to control and maintain. Now, the choice of which ammo to use on a weapon is more about whether you want a more comfortable, lower maintenance experience with a weaker ammo type, or instead push the weapon further with stronger ammo at the cost of increased difficulty of use and more expensive maintenance. Similar to ammo type conversion mods, which use a stronger ammo type, hardened receivers now have additional recoil and higher AP costs. Critical receivers now also increase a weapon's AP cost. Stock and bayonets. Paired with the damage increase on the weapons themselves, switching from a grip to a stock or adding a bayonet or both will greatly improve bash damage. Prime receivers. Prime receivers have been modified to be vastly more powerful but overall more expensive to use. Not only will players need to more actively seek out ultra sight ammo, no longer drops as contextual ammo, that's what they mean. You will need to craft it, you cannot get it, so for everyone who want to use it, start farming it now before this patch drops. Fill up your ammo storage to the full. If you don't have Fallout first, consider for 1 month, so you can fill up ammo box. But weapons with prime receivers will be a bit harder to handle than before. The major changes for prime receivers are as follows. So more damage boost, more range, higher AP cost, higher recoil cone of fire, but in the same time reduction to fire rate. I don't know why reduction to fire rate is here. I don't practically like it too much. I think it's unnecessary. I would just like, if the ammo is gonna be so much more expensive, I would just like the bonuses without the penalties. That's how it is. Semi-automatic and automatic weapon mods. In addition to the area-based damage, sneak damage and Vats critical attack damage changes from the Gone Fission update, automatic mods for semi-automatic weapons also have the following changes relative to the unmodded weapon. Higher ammo capacity, reduced range, increased weight, reduced durability, increased value, higher maximum recoil, and cone of fire. Miscellaneous mod changes. Change a duplicate automatic 38 receiver for the pipe gun to instead be automatic 45 receiver. Fix an issue where laser and plasma weapon mods, which added fire damage, only had fire damage over time instead of also having fire damage on hit. Damage from sniper charging mods on laser weapons has been greatly increased. Oh, and by the way, most likely, like in those notes about plasma weapons, most likely that will put Enclave Plasma mods that include fire damage to be good again. In my guide, I said those are not good, most likely because of that, and next patch they should be good, hopefully. Bonus damage, armor penetration, increased limb damage, bleed damage, etc. from heavy, barbed, bladed, spike, puncturing, and other mods on melee weapons is now applied much more consistently relative to the mod's name and appearance. Ammo changes. The light machine gun now uses 45 caliber ammo instead of 308. Gauss weapons and 2mm. We've made a few changes with the goal of easing the high ammo cost of using Gauss minigun. The crafting yields and contextual ammo drop rates for 2mm EC ammo have been increased. Gauss pistol now uses 2 ammo per shot and has 18 round clip. Gauss rifle now uses 3 ammo per shot and has 15 round clip. Gauss shotgun now uses 5 ammo per shot and has a 40 round clip. So they still shoot the same amount of times before reload, they just use more ammo. Ultra sight ammo. As mentioned above, prime receivers are now much more powerful. Ultra sight ammo is now geared towards being specialized ammo that players use when they need a large boost in firepower over regular ammo. Ultra sight ammo is no longer included in contextual ammo drops. Instead, you will receive randomized ammo. That means randomized ammo if you are holding prime weapon, you will get randomized ammo. Rat storm and glowing creature changes. In order to increase the availability of materials used for crafting ultra sight ammo, we've made the following changes. Rat storms are slightly more common across Appalachia. Nuke flora such as bomberries, flash ferns now have a chance to appear in rat storms. Glowing creatures now have a chance to appear in rat storms. Glowing creatures will often scale slightly above players' level, up to 100. Glowing creatures now scale more appropriately for lower level players. Glowing creatures can drop hardened mass and similar nuke-only materials during rat storms, including glowing creatures that would have spawned regardless of the rat storm. Miscellaneous combat changes, and starting from the huge nerf. The auto axe and chainsaw attack speed have been reduced from about 27 hits per second to 14. In other words, attack speed halved. These weapons should no longer differ in attack speeds between first and third person views. Fix an incorrect firing sound of the 10mm Twig automatic receiver. Improve loot from petrified corpses common in Morgantown Airport and other locations. Reduce the impact of lag on the rate at which Vats critical attack meter fills. So that's a Vats nerf. Situations where the player would fill the meter in 2 hits, so 33 lag, will now be closer to 3 to 4 shots. So that's a nerf. Will limit breaking be able to compensate for that? The 4-star legendary mod will need to test, but it sounds like a huge nerf to criticals. They will be way more harder to achieve every second shot if even possible. Explosions from Nuka grenades no longer ignore line of sight. In translation, you can no longer farm Westek with Nuka grenades because they will not punch through walls. Reduce the damage of the Vox syringer so players are less likely to kill smaller targets. Sneak damage is now multiplicative instead of additive, meaning sneak attacks can hit much harder than before, and that is huge. That is probably bigger than they think it is. In other words, your sneak build, you can expect your total damage to go up by 3, 4, or 5 folds, or maybe even 10 folds, depend on the weapon you are using. Some weapons are getting buffed in addition to this change, and some weapons are getting higher sneak damage multipliers. So edge case scenario, maybe even 20 folds for the weapons that receiving the highest buff, but generally about 5 fold you can expect whatever your sneak build is damage increase as long as you can get the sneak attacks. That's huge. Adjusted the range and flight characteristic of the first Zappa Nuka mod projectiles. Increase the speed of the baseball grenade projectile. Ghoul Feral accuracy reduction now reduces Vats hit chance to 30% in addition to unchanged 300% cone of fire increase, which is good for Feral Ghouls. If you are familiar with live game version, currently it's going down to 0%, so going from 0 to 30, it's helping. Bonus limb damage from Twisted Muscles no longer works with ranged weapons, so that's a nerf, and that's a bigger nerf than just that to Twisted Muscles. I will need to kick out from the next patch Twisted Muscles from my builds. Twisted Muscles now reduces Vats chance by 30% in addition to the 50% cone of fire increase. Vulcan Power Armor Gimbal Bracers nerfed by 3-folds. That's sad. That's such a cool mod. Lot of perk adjustments. Crackshot, Ground Pounder, Modern Renegade, Stabilized, Stabilizers 4-star Legendary mod. All of this is nerfed, and they saying bug fix. So bug fix means nerf in Bethesda vocabulary. Bug fix, nerf. Enemy adjustments. Since many low-performing weapons have received significant damage increases, median player damage is now much higher. To account for this, we've adjusted the health and resistances of the following creatures. There's a lot of them, but we have no idea how much it was adjusted, so it says us absolutely nothing. Miscellaneous enemy changes. Some Deathclaw attacks, Liberators attacks, robots being immune to bleed. Adjusted the damage of Volatile Mutation in Daily Ops to be much weaker, which is good for us, and then big changes to perks. In this update, we are finishing up our rebalancing of weapon perks, which include the heavy, melee, thrown, and bow weapons. Heavy gunner perks are being replaced with perks that focus on spending ammo to gain bonuses, along with a highly requested perk to decrease the spin-up time on weapons. Melee perks are moving away from one-hand and two-hand designation, and instead these perks will lean into more general properties of melee weapons, such as bleed and power attacks. Bow perks will be benefiting thrown melee as well as the bow weapons with new ways to take down groups of enemies. We are also standardizing perks and mods that grant the ability to automatically revive. Perks with these effects now bypass going into the down state, have a 100% chance to occur, have a cooldown, and require the use of a healing item such as Stimpack, which is overall, if you were watching Turtlecast, I didn't read this part, I miss it. So it's overall a buff. It's not a nerf, it's a buff to those effects. In addition, all effects that apply buffs to other players through revive will apply to yourself when self-reviving. The order in which these effects can occur is fixed. Scout Banner first, EMT perk second, Life Saving mod third, Power Armor reboot last. So if you have them all, you will be reviving like crazy. And this is fun. You're gonna use that. Perk card changes, lots of them. Slugger, 30% melee damage versus crippled. That's the first one, very bad, not gonna use it. Slugger Expert. Blunt melee weapons deal 100% limb damage. This is good, we're gonna use it. Absolutely on all melee builds. Slugger Master. New name is Heavy Hitter. Blunt melee weapons deal 50% power attack damage, 50% more, so very good, as power attack damage is multiplicative. Gladiator. New name, Wound Salter. 30% damage against bleeding enemies. Too weak, not gonna use it. Gladiator Expert, new name, Meat Mincer. Bladed melee weapons gain 20% swing speed, which can be good. Bloodluster. Your bleed effects have 35% more damage and 25% less duration, so hit harder and faster. Iron Fist. Your fist weapons deal more damage based on your damage resistance. Interesting. Heavy Gunner. New name, Drum Corpse. And that's multiple stacks. Max out rank will be 9%. So gain 1 stack of Bullet Storm for every 50 ammo spent up to 10 stacks. Each stack increases damage by 9%, resets when you reload or change weapons. Note, on Bullet Storm, the perk Drum Corps grants the ability to gain a stacking buff based on ammo spent. This buff increases the damage you deal, and other perks can add additional effects. You can have up to 10 stacks of Bullet Storm and they last until you change weapon or reload. So that's 90%, as you can guess, at max, but there is another perk that can double it. So 180%. I like the Drum Corps, that sounds good. Tightly Wound. Weapons spin up faster. That's for the Gatling Plasma. Bringing the big guns. Your Bullet Storm stack limit is doubled. So that gives us 180% total bonus damage, which is awesome. Lock and Load. You keep half of your Bullet Storm stacks when you reload. Each stack increases reload speed by 1%, so that will be 20% reload speed, and you lose only half of your stacks on reload. Awesome. Bare Arms. Each stack of Bullet Storm increases your bash damage by 5%. Now my question is, if I load the minigun shredder, and it will be quad, I shoot all the bullets and do not reload. You know what I'm thinking? Yeah. What's gonna happen? Can I be running with 20 stacks? Killing everything? I don't know if they think that through, but I will enjoy it, at least on the public test server, before inevitably they will notice that with minigun shredder every enemy, including bosses, die under a second. Pain Train. Improve hit detection and limited hit rate. Counts as a fist weapon. Increase base damage and damage per rank. Uses 5 AP per hit. Interesting change. It's connected as well to 4-star legendaries. Bow Before Me. 40% armor pen, 10% stagger with bows or thrown melee. Archer. New name Hat Trick. Arrows and thrown melee weapons bounce towards 3 additional targets, dealing 80% damage. Dev note, the damage is reduced 80% each bounce. Bounce range is based on the weapon's range. So this sounds really cool. Like, imagine that. Bows being cool again with next patch. Bouncing arrows? Sign me up. This one I like. You may notice that some changes I'm really excited about and some I'm criticizing. I'm just expressing my opinions, and I do have them always. Yo may vary. Archer Expert, new name Deal Sealer. Deal 10% damage for each impairment your target has. Dev note, impairments are crippled, bleeding, burning, poison. And this is very weak. You will not use it. Archer Master. Arrow and thrown melee weapons pierce targets. So piercing, bouncing arrows? Sign me in. Fire in the Hole. New name, Strong Arm. Rank 1, thrown weapons fly 50% further. Dev note, the throwing arc effect has been moved to the settings menu. Homebody. Improve benefits of being well rested. Well rested grants +2 agility. Kindred Spirit grants +2 perception. Lover's Embrace grants +2 charisma. EMT. Point cost 2. Automatically revive a down teammate once every 3 minutes and grant them increased healing for 1 minute. Both players need to be in the same area or interior and within a reasonable distance. Injector. Players you revive have 18 AP regen for 1 minute. Revenant. Players you revive have 25% damage for 2 minutes. Healing Hands. Players you revive are fully healed. Rat Sponge. Absorb 30% of rats taken and restore hunger and thirst. Look at that. Perfect perk for a lazy build for human. Ninja. 100% sneak attack damage with melee and bows. Extending this perk to bows and thrown weapons. So bows, piercing, bouncing, sneak multiplier damage. What's gonna happen to those enemies? I cannot wait. Psychopath. Hits outside Vats refill your critical meter at 15% contribution. But now my question is, will it be possible to crit outside of Vats? There is no mention about it anywhere in the patch notes. It only says that you can recharge it. Grim Reaper Sprint. Gain 10% action point regeneration per kill while on a kill streak, max 10. So max 100% AP regeneration from Grim Reaper Sprint. Bloody Mess. Bleeding enemies you kill have a chance to explode for more damage based on your luck. Generally, I don't like it. You may enjoy it. I don't like my dead enemies exploding in my face, even though in the notes there is that they will not do damage to me. They will still blind me, I bet. Power Armor Reboot. Automatically revive using a Stimpack while in Power Armor. Cooldown 2 minutes. The random chance was removed and the cooldown added. Hack and Slash. Melee attacks deal 60% of their damage in a small area. Period. No requirement for Vats. Finally, Hack and Slash is back on the menu. Legendary mods, life saving, 100% chance, and added 5-minute cooldown. Reduced by 1 minute per additional piece. Lucky renamed to Lucky Hit. Rejuvenators. Now adds health and AP regeneration to the Hunger and Thirst abilities. And this is complicated. We'll need to see how well it's working. Choo-choos. This effect has been overhauled to use the Pain Train perk. Each item equipped with this mod grants +1 rank to Pain Train. This can go beyond the max rank of 3 and works even if you do not have the perk equipped. It also adds an on-hit bleeding effect to Pain Train that scales with more choo-choo mods equipped. Can be really cool. Cannot wait to test choo-choo. Workbench. Weapon workbench. There's some sorting adjustment, new menus. Consumables. Steep Ash Rose Tea duration increased to 1 hour. Gameplay. Floating damage number now have a random offset, so to do not overlap with other. Damage over time effects now display floating damage numbers. Weapons. Unarmed tag renamed to Fist. Fist weapons now include either the blunt or sharp tags. Automatic melee has been renamed to Power Tool. Clarified the cursed description. Fishing. Inspecting a fish now shows how many of it you have caught. The sad dev note. This stat is unfortunately not retroactive and will only count fish from this patch forward. Menu. Help entries are now sorted alphabetically in all languages. Help menu entry for all impairments added. And those are all the notes. I cannot wait to read your opinions. Most likely I will read them tomorrow in Barmouth when I be relaxing on the beach. But I will welcome your view on this patch. Whatever you like it, hate it, let us know. There's lots of good stuff in it. There is some stuff I don't like. And you now know which I like and which I don't because you somehow managed to get through entire video. Thank you for that. I wish you an amazing weekend and see you in the next one.